Welcome to grades 3 through 5 Fit Night. The elementary literacy specialists are so excited to have you here with us tonight. Let's begin. On this slide, you will see a picture of a rope. The rope illustrates how all the parts of the writing module come together to have an effective writing instruction. It takes all the pieces listed on the left-hand side: composing, syntax, text structure, writing craft, and transcription to create quality writing instruction. EL education uses a Writing for Understanding model. Writing for Understanding model is an approach to writing instruction that recognizes that at the heart of effective writing is the building of meaning and then expressing it so that others can follow the writer's thinking. Therefore, Writing for Understanding recognizes that if students are to write effectively and with engagement during testing, for their own personal growth, for school, for real life, they need these elements in place. Writing in the EL education curriculum is centered on the Writing for Understanding model. It is a content-based literacy approach that uses a focusing question or essential question to ground the content learning, builds student working knowledge of the content, and allows ample opportunities for students to process that knowledge, then provides a structure of writing for students to demonstrate their knowledge using the writing process. Writing is taught daily as students read complex text, collect evidence, reflect on their thinking, and write to demonstrate their understanding. Students are continually writing to capture information, process their thinking, demonstrate their mastery of knowledge and skills, and produce high-quality work that matters. This is all grounded in the knowledge that they have built on the module topic. What is high-quality writing in the classroom? It's teaching foundational writing skills. Students are taught writing practice is an independent rotation in all block. It's important to establish a culture for student ownership. Set a learning environment that is positive and supportive, whether online or in person. Establish and sustain writing routines. In all block, that looks like a 2-week cycle of writing and reading. Ensure students write frequently. Collaborative writing. Students compose together in all block and modules. Goal setting. Allow students to set their own goals. It's teach students strategies for planning, drafting, revising, and editing. The curriculum lessons teach students how to give, receive feedback, then use critique cycles to revise their writing, especially in Unit 3. It's important to provide time for critique feedback cycles. Ensure students acquire needed writing skills, knowledge, and strategies. Differentiate based on data by analyzing of mid, end of module assessments. Use writing as a tool to support students' learning. Increase students' knowledge about writing daily. Reading response, entrance, exit tickets, student rubrics, checklists, graphic organizers. Support students in producing high-quality standards-based writing products. Now watch this video. As you are watching the video, what do you notice about how writing is addressed?
Morning. Good morning. Good morning. In the primary grades, the expectation of what writers can do has grown.
Hello, students. Let's go ahead and get started. All students aren't prolific writers. So before they begin to put the pencils to the paper, they need to really take a deeper dive into what they just read.
We're going to read, think, talk, and write.
In Detroit, Michigan, first grade teacher Tawana Jordan and fourth grade teacher Caitlin Billups are engaging students in the Read, Think, Talk, Write framework. The framework gives students an opportunity to synthesize evidence, play with ideas, develop arguments, and rehearse various forms of communication during lessons in order to demonstrate a deep knowledge and understanding of the topic in writing.
Today we're going to talk about what makes a bird a bird.
This approach integrates reading, speaking and listening, and writing, and results in the production of high-quality, evidence-based writing for students of all ability levels and learning styles.
I really feel like this framework allows them access to this rigorous curriculum in different forms. Previous curriculums, they would give just a little bit of information, almost like a writing prompt, and then push the students to go ahead and write about it. This curriculum allows them to really organize their writing, that they're able to think about it and really capture all the information in their writing through discussion. They typically are much better writers, and their writing samples really reflect that. Today, guys, we are planning for our writing project. Your Choose Your Own Adventure narrative, it must include these 3 components.
The Read, Think, Talk, Write framework is developed through backwards design and can be found at the module, unit, and lesson level.
For example, Module 2, Unit 1, we began to read about animal defense mechanisms and their importance. Then we moved to Unit 2, where we took a deeper dive into that, and that's when we began to do more of our thinking, our talking, and our writing. And now we're into Unit 3, which is basically all talking, all writing, because our reading has taken place beforehand. So by using this backward design model, I'm able to understand what my students need to know and kind of how this information stacks and scaffolds to get there.
We're gonna read this together and we're gonna think about it. It's what is a bird? And so that's our guiding question.
In this approach, worthy, complex texts are positioned as the expert in the room.
Go ahead.
All birds lay eggs.
Lessons scaffold students to read actively, annotate the texts, use note catchers, and complete short writing tasks that bring them back into the text over and over.
So I want you now to think about what you just read. We're thinking about the characteristics of the bird. Kylan is thinking, Shantae is thinking, King.
During the thinking time, asking scaffolded questions will point the students back to the text in a way that helps build understanding.
Your main character of your story, how would you want your animal to interact? Just thinking about if my students ever get stumped on a question, what supplementary questions can I ask them? Because they're going to need to answer those questions in the talking phase to be able to write an exemplary work sample. What do you do every day?
Collect food
What else?
and sleep all day.
You sleep all day? Are you nocturnal?
All birds lay eggs. Most look after them until the eggs hatch into chicks.
Yeah. And what did that mean?
The mama go stay until they hatch into chicks.
Yeah. And what do you think she's doing while they're hatching? What is she doing? Is she sitting on?
Camouflage.
Yeah. She's camouflage. Right? She is
Because she
camouflage.
won't get caught.
I want you to get with some other people from other animal expert groups, collaborate, bounce some ideas back and forth, use all the resources you have available.
When students talk to one another about what they are reading, it gives them a chance to orally rehearse their ideas, build off each other, and clarify their own misconceptions.
We did a lot of talking. We talked as table groups, we talked as expert groups.
I can run 42 miles per hour. What? He's an ostrich. What are you? I'm a 3-belly armadillo. I'm kind of slow because I got a shell, but I can roll up into a ball, a tight ball.
My students are grouped in a heterogeneous sample. The students support each other. So I almost can facilitate instead of hover and teach them.
What is his daily life behaviors?
My behavior is my defense mechanism, which is dodging predators.
We're going to turn to our neighbor, and you're going to talk about what we just read in that paragraph. In a large classroom, some students are more comfortable just sharing with their neighbor. I notice
Birds have wings and feathers and beaks.
in the lesson, we were able to use the protocols like Pinky Partners, where the students are able to pick their partner that they think about their answer and then share. Titus, what did you notice?
I know that all birds have feathers.
All birds have feathers. Good, Latitus. And I like the way you went back to the text to get your answer.
As we conclude, I need an exit ticket. What helped you develop your character?
The final component of the Read, Think, Talk, Write framework is writing. However, writing doesn't happen only at the end of the learning process. Some of the writing may include annotating texts during reading, completing graphic organizers, or writing short paragraphs in response to a prompt.
Amari, go ahead and read the first sentence.
They are the only animals that have feathers.
If we look at their writing from before we use the framework to now, I can see great progress. So read another sentence,
All
Cameron.
birds have feet. You got the information from the book. I would say text. We build off each other's ideas.
I am guilty of hand-holding and over-modeling. I just had to learn to let go. After I transferred the control to my students, they were able to surprise me as to what they could do.
Yes, it can roll into a coil ball. Talking with our expert groups or with our peers. It's helping us and guiding us. It can actually give us more information about what we're writing about, what we're thinking about.
Seeing the progress really warms me up. It's like, okay, this is really working. They're able to produce something that they can be proud of, that I can definitely be proud of.
Writing is built into each module of study. Students write many types of writing within the modules. They are always asked to write from a source and cite evidence. Students use research to build and present knowledge.
Before we look at assessment expectations, writing and performance tasks for the rest of the year, we'd like to point out a great resource for home use. Your student's student workbook. Included in there are model essays of the type of writing your student will be asked to do, along with rubrics on how they'll be assessed. These tools are invaluable in guiding you to end-of-year expectations for your student. Let's talk about how the modules flow for the rest of the year. In grade 3, module 4, this module focuses on the importance of clean, fresh water around the world. In unit 1, students read the text One Well, the story of water on Earth, to build background knowledge about fresh water around the world and the 3 issues they will read about more in unit 2, access to water, demands on water, and water population. In the mid-unit 1 assessment, answering questions about an informational text, this assessment has 2 parts. In part 1, the students listen to an excerpt of One Well, read aloud, and determine the main idea and supporting details. In part 2, they read the same text and answer text-dependent multiple choice and short answer questions, demonstrating ability to explain the function of nouns and pronouns, to determine the relationship among a series of steps, and to use illustrations to gain a deeper understanding of the meaning of text. In the end-of-unit assessment, students will read a new informational text and compare the main ideas and details with those of the pages 24 and 25 of One Well. They then answer selected responses and short constructed response questions to demonstrate an ability to explain the function of verbs, adjectives, and adverbs. In Unit 2, students continue their study of the 3 issues related to water, this time reading different texts about each issue and comparing the point of view of the authors to their own point of view. In the second half of this unit, they add to the research begun in Unit 1 by rereading the module text for solutions for each issue. Students then use the painted essay structure to write an opinion essay about the importance of water. In the mid-Unit 2 assessment, examining point of view, students will read a new text on the lack of access to water in Australia and answer selected response and short constructed response questions to demonstrate an ability to distinguish an author's point of view from their own, and to determine the literal and non-literal meanings of words and phrases in context. In their end of Unit 2 assessment, they're going to be writing an opinion essay. Again, this assessment has 2 parts. In part 1, students will use information gathered from multiple sources to draft an opinion essay, explaining why we should get involved into water conservation. In part 2, students will apply what they learned about linking words and forming and using regular and irregular plural nouns to revise and edit the essay. We then delve into Unit 3, where students will begin by writing an invitational letter. Students use planning done in previous lessons to write a letter to guests, inviting them to the live launch of their water issue video PSAs. The letter briefly outlines the water issues the presentation addresses and the purpose of the presentation, and also includes details about where and when the presentation will take place. In the end of Unit Assessment 3, in partnerships, students will create a PSA about one of the 3 water issues studied earlier in the module: access to water, demands of water, pollution. When we get to the performance task, students will work in pairs to share their learning about their chosen water issues, causes, effects, and potential solutions by unveiling their PSAs to an audience in a live launch. In grade 4, we'll be looking how one's perspective influences his or her opinion. In this module, students consider the answer to this question through the lens of the American Revolution. In Unit 1, students build background knowledge about the Revolutionary War and the different perspectives of colonists. For the mid-Unit 1 assessments, students will apply what they learned about reading and analyzing informational text to answer selected response questions about what happened and why in a new informational text. They will then use the text to research to find out more about patriots, gathering information on a note catcher to write an informative paragraph about who the patriots were and what they believed. As we move into the end of Unit 1 assessments, students will apply what they have learned about reading and analyzing informational texts to answer selected response questions about the main idea and overall structure of new informational texts. They will then summarize the text. In the second half of the unit, students read about different groups within the Loyalists and Patriots, reading informational text to determine the main idea, analyze the overall structure of text, and summarize the text. In the mid-Unit 2 assessment, students will have 2 parts. In Part 1, students will read Act 2, Scene 3 of Divided Loyalties and answer selected responses in short constructed response questions about the text. They will also write a paragraph about the character Mary in this scene of the play. In Part 2, after closely reading a line of the Declaration of Independence, students participate in a text-based discussion in which they respond to a question. For the end of Unit 2 assessment, this is also 2 parts. Part 1, students will write a short first-person narrative explaining in detail what a character from Divided Loyalties is thinking and feeling at a specific point in the scene. In Part 2, students will answer selected response and short answer questions about literary text. As we move into Unit 3, let's begin by looking at the mid-Unit 3 assessment. Students will apply what they learned about reading and analyzing opinion text to answer selected response and short answer questions about how an author supports a point with reasons and evidence. And we'll finish this module with the end of Unit Assessment 3. This assessment has 2 parts as well. In Part 1, students demonstrate what they have learned about writing an opinion piece by drafting a broadside from the Loyalist perspective. In Part 2, students apply what they learned about linking words, prepositional phrases, and frequently confused words to revise and edit the broadside. For their final performance task, students discuss their opinion of the American Revolution. Students consider both the Loyalist and Patriot sides and decide which they would have supported if they lived in colonial times. They consider their reasons and gather evidence from their research across the module. They then participate in collaborative discussions, stating their opinion, giving reasons and evidence to support their point. In grade 5, their module, students consider the factors that contribute to the success of professional athletes as leaders of social change. They read about a number of professional athletes who have been leaders of social change, beginning with Jackie Robinson. For their first mid-unit assessment, students apply what they learn to identify multiple main ideas in a new section of Promises to Keep and explain how each is supported by key details. They then express this understanding in a concise written summary. Finally, students revise a short passage to correct inappropriate shifts in verb tense. For the end of Unit 1 assessment, this will have 2 parts. Part 1, students apply what they learned about summarizing in a text read aloud. Students listen to a new section of Promise to Keep, recording the main idea and key details as the text is read aloud. They then use this information to write a summary of the text. In part 2, students reread the same section of the text and answer selected response or short answer questions to demonstrate the understanding of the relationship between key ideas in the text. As we move into Unit 2, students continue their study of Jackie Robinson, building their understanding of factors that led to his success by developing an opinion on which factors were most important in his success. In the Mid-Unit 2 assessment, students will be analyzing a short video and examining points of view. In Part 2, students reread a section of Promises to Keep, applying what they learned to compare and contrast accounts of Jackie's earlier months in the Major League Baseball as they are told by different family members of the Robinson family. For the end of Unit 2 assessment, we'll have 2 parts again. Students will be writing an opinion essay. In Part 1, students continue to work on the opinion essay begun in class by drafting a second body paragraph and conclusion. In Part 2, they revise their essay to ensure that each reason is clearly linked to the stated opinion and well supported by facts and details. The Mid-Unit 3 assessment has 2 parts. Watch a video and read about a new professional athlete, Janet Guthrie, and identify the similarities and differences between the factors that supported her success in being an effective leader of social change with those of Jackie Robinson. Then they write an on-demand essay outlining the similarities and differences using evidence from both texts. The end of Unit 3 assessment includes a multimedia presentation where students synthesize their research by sharing their thinking about the key factors that support success in being an effective leader of social change. Final performance task includes a poster where personal qualities to be an effective leader of change are demonstrated.
Now that we've had an opportunity to explore the roadmaps for grades 3 through 5, and you have had an opportunity to learn more about what your student is learning about writing within ELA education, let's focus our thinking around how you can support your writers at home. Here are 3 ideas for you to consider. It is always important for students to have lots of practice in writing about text. Here are 3 ways: responding to text in writing, writing notes about the text, and creating and answering written questions about the text. Another idea to support your writer at home is to reinforce use of academic vocabulary within writing aligned to the topic of the module they are studying. Lastly, increase how much time your student writes. Motivation to write plays a key role in a student's development of a love for writing. Here are some ways that you can motivate students to write. Brainstorming is an important first step as it allows students to think of ideas and discuss with their peers and teachers before putting ideas onto paper. You can also help your students to brainstorm before they write at home as well. This allows your students to determine what they want to say in their writing before they begin. Build excitement for your writer and the information they want to share. As your student begins to put their ideas on paper, be sure not to focus on grammar or spelling initially. This can deter students from getting their ideas on paper. They can make revisions to their ideas and edits to the grammar and spelling after they have all of their ideas on paper. Following these steps helps students better understand the process for writing. It is also important that students have time to write freely without any specific assignment attached. Allow time for journaling or free writing about a topic of their choice. This helps them develop a love for writing as well. It might be helpful to help them generate a list of topics to write about if you notice that your writer is stuck and having difficulty deciding what to write about. Always encourage them to write using paper and pencil in addition to using the keyboard. Here are some key takeaways from our session today on writing. Writing for understanding is the model that is used in the ELA education curriculum. Research-based practices and high-quality writing instruction are building blocks within ELA education. Writing is strengthened through student-engaged assessments. ELA Education's use of the Read, Think, Talk, Write framework is an important strategy embedded within the curriculum that supports students in a deeper engagement with text before responding in writing. We hope that these tips or ideas for how to support your student at home as a writer will be beneficial. Thank you.